the Susquehanna River Watershed. A beautiful watershed. You know what I feel like doing? I feel like teaching you about 6 species of fish that inhabit or can be found in the Susquehanna River Watershed. Let's go. Ow! What the heck? Well, the first fish that I will be teaching you about is the Atlantic sturgeon. So Atlantic, yet so sturgeon. The Atlantic sturgeon is an anadromous fish. This means that it lives in salt water originally, but migrates to fresh water to reproduce. So the Atlantic sturgeons that can be found in the Susquehanna River originally lived in salt water, but migrated to the Susquehanna River, which is fresh water of course, to reproduce. So Atlantic sturgeon can reach a length of up to 14 feet, which is pretty long. It's more than 2 of me stacked up onto each other. I'm like around 6 feet. And Atlantic sturgeon can live up to 60 years, which is also a really long lifespan for fish. But however, because of dams that were built on the Susquehanna River, Atlantic sturgeon can't migrate far into the Susquehanna River to reproduce. So some parts of the river don't have as large a population of Atlantic sturgeon as they used to back in the day. So Atlantic sturgeon, talking about their appearance now, have a shark-like tail, and they possess 5 rows of bony plates called scutes. Another thing about Atlantic sturgeon is that they have noodle-like barbels on the bottom of their chin that they use to taste and find food. For example, some of the food they eat are small animals such as small fish, worms, and crustaceans. You may more commonly know sturgeon as the fish that is used to make caviar. People catch them and then they take their eggs and they make caviar out of them. The next fish I'll be teaching you guys about is the Longnose Gar. So the interesting thing about Longnose Gar is that they can live in freshwater or saltwater or brackish water, which is a mix of the two. Not salty enough to be saltwater, but not fresh enough to be freshwater. So an adult Longnose Gar has a long, narrow snout that is twice as long as the rest of its head. So Longnose Gar usually prefer to live in slow-moving parts of the river, and newly hatched Longnose Gar have a little sticky pad on the end of their snout that they use to attach to objects so that they don't get carried away by the current, because when they're born they're very light, of course. The hard rhombus shaped scales of a Longnose Gar do a good job of protecting them from most predators, and they have a specialized swim bladder that holds air so that they can survive in areas with low oxygen. So the swim bladder they have has it's kind of like a sac that holds oxygen so that they can survive in areas with low oxygen, which makes them a fish that's very hardy and can live in many types of waters. So usually they grow 3 to 4 feet long. Males usually live around 11 years at best, but females usually live over 17 years. And young gar may eat small crustaceans or bugs, while adults eat usually other small fish. The next fish I'll be teaching you guys about that can be found in the Susquehanna River Watershed is the Tadpole Mad Tongue. So the Tadpole Mad Tongue is a species of catfish and usually typically avoids rocky, fast-moving streams. And something really cool about this fish is that it has spines on its pectoral and dorsal fins that possess a mild venom that can be painful but isn't really dangerous for humans. It really depends. Everyone has a different reaction to it, but it should be avoided, of course. When Mad Tongue is alarmed, the spines erect, come out slightly, and lock into place to warn predators and quickly sting them if they get too close. So Tadpole Mad Tongues aren't really very large. They usually reach only about 2 to 3.5 inches, and they usually eat larvae, bug larvae, small fish, and bugs. and they usually live in areas with little current and lots of hiding areas like rocks, like vegetation, and they usually live around 3 years, so not a very long life cycle. I know, that's scary. That is a sea lamprey. Sea lamprey are a parasitic fish that naturally can be found in the Susquehanna and Delaware River, but they have moved from there and can now be found in Lake Erie as well. So the thing about lampreys is that they have a sucker-type mouth with rows of teeth and a file-like tongue, so like a sandpaper-like rough tongue, that are used to stick onto a fish and suck out its body fluids. Sounds like something from Alien, doesn't it? So here's the thing about sea lampreys. They're shaped like eels and may look like eels, but they are not eels. It's a very different thing. So when they latch on a fish and suck out their body fluids, only this may be surprising more than you'd think, but 40 to 60% of fish who are attacked by the sea lamprey survive. So around half of them do survive that, which is kind of crazy. Sea lamprey live over 6 years, so their lifespan isn't that long compared to other fish, but it isn't that short as you'd expect from like a stereotypical parasite. But sea lamprey, just like Atlantic sturgeon, are anadromous, which means that they originally live in salt water, but they migrate to the Susquehanna River, which is freshwater, to reproduce. The next fish I'll be teaching you about is a pretty interesting one. This fish is the burbot. So burbot is the only species of cod that can be found in Pennsylvania, and I believe it is the only species of freshwater cod in North America, which is pretty insane. So unfortunately, burbot are endangered due to pollution and water temperature increasing over time. So burbot, the ones that are still here with us, prefer the cold and deep parts of the Susquehanna River and streams that lie in the watershed. And they can grow up to 46 inches. So 46 inches is, of course, almost 4 feet, which is pretty crazy now that I think about it. 4 feet is pretty long, big fish. And they can live over 20 years. And just like sturgeon, they have a barbell. They only have one, however, unlike sturgeon. But of course, barbell are used to, like I said before, to feel and taste their food. And something pretty cool about burbot is that when they reproduce, they actually reproduce in the middle of winter, right under the ice. So that's pretty cool. I thought it was pretty cool. In the winter, adults feed on invertebrates, but in the summer, they usually feed on other fish. Last but not least, this is the fish I'll be teaching you about. This beautiful fish is the pumpkinseed. So pumpkinseeds are a species of sunfish, and they primarily feed on invertebrates and actually have jaws adapted for crushing the shells of hard-shelled prey such as snails. Pumpkinseed sunfish usually grow to 3 to 6 inches and usually live 5 to 6 years. So pumpkinseeds really like slow-moving parts of the Susquehanna River and slow-moving parts of the streams that lie in the watershed itself. So pumpkinseeds usually live in places with a lot of vegetation so that they can hide. And they reproduce in the late spring or early summer in areas with a depth of around 6 to 12 inches. And they actually may spawn more than once a year. And here's the part I thought was really cool. Pumpkinseed fish can actually, they sometimes crossbreed with non-native sunfish such as bluegills and green sunfish. Now, don't think that they are invasive, bluegills and green sunfish, because they're not technically invasive. They inhabited other rivers. They were naturally from other rivers in Pennsylvania, and they kind of just found their way in the Susquehanna River watershed. So I wouldn't say that they're invasive. They are more just non-native. they don't really have a bad impact on the environment. But here's a cool picture. This is an example of a crossbreed of a bluegill and a pumpkinseed sunfish. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.